All right, good evening. We are meeting as the Provo City School District Board of Education. Today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. The time is approximately 4:05 p.m. We're meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. We'll begin with a roll call. Melanie Hall, Board President.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Vice President.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
Terry McCabe, Board Member.
Nate Bryson, Board Member.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
Keith Patel, Superintendent.
And we'd like to excuse McKay Jensen this evening. Is there a motion to convene?
I move we convene the study session.
All right, we are in study session. All right, we're going to have a discussion about our superintendent search, and I'm going to turn the time over to Rebecca Nielsen.
Okay, I have a couple quick things to say before we get started. First, I want to officially welcome Richard Stoll, who's here from USBA, and he's going to be acting as our search consultant through our whole entire process. So we're happy to have you, Richard, and that is kind of for the public to know who you are and to kind of introduce you to them as well. But excuse me, for everybody here, I just want to go over the purpose of this meeting really quickly and just do a couple quick reminders before we get started. Purpose of this meeting today is to go over our responsibilities as board versus consultant and what we will all be doing throughout the remainder of the superintendent search. So I just wanted to give a quick reminder that this needs to be regarding these tasks only, and if there are personnel issues or things that you want to talk about, that needs to be kept for another time within our executive sessions or within our interviews with Richard. And so please make sure that today's comments are not focused on what we're looking for in our new superintendent or qualities desired, things like that, but that we're just keeping it simply to tasks and responsibilities. So that's the reminder I wanted to give everyone, and then with that,
okay,
we'll have you take it away.
Okay, well, thank you, Rebecca, and thanks for lining up the interviews. Had 3 great interviews so far with the board members, which I think is important and critical for us to be able to get an idea, of how each of you perceive the process, and they've been general, and certainly, the questions are, I have those on paper and I give everybody a copy of it, so, there's not any secret kind of questions or anything that way, but it's for us to be able to get a feel of some of the thoughts or concerns that the board members have and make sure that those get addressed through the process. So, first of all, you can see on there I've kind of just had a general outline of some of the things as far as the search process goes. And I think I've mentioned when I was here and we were having the interview and I brought Nancy with me that there's really not any secret to how this search goes to make it successful. The only secret there is that we get your input and that we make it to where it's customized for this school district. So we're addressing what you would like to see, and that's what makes it successful. And each one of these searches that I have done, I think that's been kind of the secret sauce here to that, is getting your input and for you to be involved in being able to say, hey, this is what works in Provo School District, and it's not necessarily what's going to work in other school districts. And so a lot of the things that we'll talk about I'll bring to you just as suggestions or ideas. They're not even recommendations, they're just things that we have found has worked. And so we'll kind of just navigate through some of those things. So let me just jump in, and then let's make sure we accomplish today what all, Rebecca, that you would like to see for us to accomplish here. But just quickly, number 2 there you can see is a review of the Utah Code. The Utah law allows you as a Board of Education lots of latitude and flexibility. And the Utah Code just basically says that the Board of Education, so keep that in mind, the Board of Education shall appoint a superintendent based upon outstanding qualities and qualifications. And that's about all there is. That's really the only limit that you have. And so you have that authority to make that decision about those qualifications. And so we want to make sure that we get that input from all of you about those qualifications. What is it that's important for that superintendent to have to be successful in Provo School District? So we'll be focusing a lot on those qualifications and talking about that and how we gather that information. Beyond that, it's up to you as a board to decide how we go about that process. And you need to be involved in that, obviously, to make sure that we do have a success. And we will have a success when you're involved and you're the ones who give that direction, either to me or to Keith or to Derek, of what we do and how we go forward. So it's that's critical to it. So make sure, and I'll remind you of that. This is your decision. You guys need to make that, okay? And we can bring you ideas and suggestions, so maybe not too different than other decisions that are made by the board. And then number 3, we've talked about that before. The recruitment process, that is anymore a critical piece in the whole selection, is that recruitment. And so, what is your role as a board member? And, and I'm sure that all of you have probably already been approached by people and saying, hey, I'm thinking about applying. Do you think that I have a chance? Or people have said, well, you ought to hire this person or that person or someone else. And I'm sure all of you have had that, and if you haven't, you're going to have a lot more of it between now and July 1st when you when the new superintendent takes over. So you will have a lot of people wanting to give you input or be asking you about them applying. And so it really becomes critical for you as a board member, I think, of how you respond. And I'm not here to tell you how to do that, but I will give you a suggestion of what you might do when somebody approaches you, Nate, and they say, gosh, Nate, do you think I've got a chance, of being the new superintendent? Do you think I ought to apply? And so here's what I have found to be probably the easiest answer, is just to say, this Board of Education is committed to finding the very best person that we can, whether they're inside the district or outside the district. And then you can say, and so, if you are interested, well, I would just encourage you to apply. And here's how you can do that. And then you can give them, the district website address, our website address. We'll have brochures that are available, so a hard copy here at the district office. People can get a copy of it there, or whatever other means, that we decide to make it available to people, other websites they could go to, whatever it is. But anyhow, that you can send them there. That's just a suggestion of how you would handle that. The thing that board members can get into a problem is if you say to somebody, oh, I think you'd just do a great job, Gina. You'd be great. And then we don't hire Gina. You know what? They're going to come back to me and they're going to go, you told me to apply, that I'd be this great candidate, and you didn't hire me. And then you've created a problem for you and that person. And, and I think that can be a real bad problem for you, because if they come to you, it's probably a friend anyhow, or a close associate. And so, to take care of yourself by not putting yourself, at risk in a situation, I just found that's a great answer. And you can come up with your own answer, but that's certainly one that I found is a really safe one. Because we certainly don't want to discourage anybody. We want to encourage everybody to apply for it that's interested. So we want to do that, but we certainly don't want to, from my perspective, I always try to maintain integrity with people and be a straight shooter with them, and not tell somebody something that I can't deliver on, because you may not be able to. They may, you may think they're a great candidate, but if the rest of the board doesn't, they're probably not going to get hired, Terry, are they? and then you have a real problem in your community. So I think if you can just be this positive voice out there and tell people, hey, we're just encouraging anybody that's interested, to apply. And here's how you can do it, and you can be really helpful to them. And if you even want some of those announcements, hard copies to have with you that you can hand to people, that will be very helpful, and you want to be doing that. You want to be helpful to people. But you also need to be in a position so that somebody doesn't say, that you had promised me that. That'd be a really bad situation for you to be in, for them to go, well, geez, Gina promised me that I'd, get an interview, or Gina promised me I'd be the new superintendent, and have a problem. So anyhow, I think you can see where that can lead to, and just, and maybe you've already gone down that road by having people ask you that question, but hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an idea going forward. And our role at USBA, we're going to do everything we can in recruiting.
Richard, I got a call on Friday afternoon from a former principal who expressed interest in applying, and that's exactly how I answered the question.
Great.
If you believe you're a good fit for it, then I definitely think you should apply.
Yeah, okay. And there will be more that come. And and thanks, Superintendent. And I think that if you can communicate that to your people here in the office, that needs to be our message out there of where we're at. Will be helpful, because there will be a lot of calls come. I hope there's a lot of calls. That's my job, is to get all those calls coming, and so I'm going to be working on that, and that is our role. But we're going to do everything that we can to get that word out there to people, by way, again, doing it electronically, as well as doing it by hard copy, and getting that information posted on websites. Now, people will say to us, well, where are you going to post it at? And the thing that we'll do, if you will let us know if there are certain sites that maybe your people use, or that the district's used, if you'll pass that on to us, we will ensure that they get posted there. So any of those places. So if people, sometimes they'll go, well, did you post it here? And you can say, hey, let me take it and I'll forward that down to Richard. You can always direct questions to me, and if you make sure that we know that's what we're looking for, we'll get it posted everywhere we can. Now, some of those websites can be very expensive, and so we have found that some of those are not really helpful and don't generate a lot of candidates for us. In fact, some of them don't even generate any candidates. It just gets your name out there, but we haven't found it to produce. So Education Weekly, we found that one really hasn't produced any candidates for us.
So do you have a few that, like, we're going to do these ones for sure?
Yeah, and so thanks, Jennifer. The ones that we have found that have been really effective is basically, all of the universities. So we like to get it to them. And most of them in Utah like to use Handshake is the program they use, and what we would use to get it posted on their website. And so, to the universities, obviously, is a great place for it. And then to all of the school districts in the state is where we get that information sent out to, as well as, KSL.com, obviously, is a great place. Not that we get great candidates from there, but the thing we found is that people will see it there, and then they're going to call Jennifer, and they're going to say, hey, Jennifer, I just saw the provost advertising for a superintendent, and we know you wanted to come back to Utah, or that you're somewhere. You have to apply for that. And so we have found that to be really helpful in getting the word out. So those are just some things that we have found of websites that can help us either directly or indirectly. So,
Richard, I'll check with our HR department and get you any websites that we use on a regular basis.
okay, if you would do that, that would be very helpful, Superintendent. We'd appreciate that. Now, down to the next one is in-district candidates. Oftentimes, we don't know exactly how many that would be, but one thing that we have found, and that is that there is always some really great candidates within your district, because you probably have some employees in your district right now, that would like to be the superintendent. And so, you know, we will have a number, we hope there's a number of those people. We really do, you know, and so again, that's why if whether they're in the district or outside of the district, that we tell those people, hey, the board is committed to hiring the very best person that we can. And, you know, those candidates may be inside or outside of the district. And so we're hoping that, you know, we will have a bunch. And I would suspect in a district this size, you know, there will be a fair number of people that would be interested. I don't know, Superintendent, do you have an idea of how many that might be?
Between 5 and 10.
Okay, that would be great.
Probably no lower than 5 and no more than 10.
Okay. And they're always you know, a great place to find candidates is inside.
And their benefit is they know the district even though they haven't done the job.
Yeah.
I might have scared them away, I'm not sure. I can't promise I did.
You know, one of the things that I did, and I may have mentioned this already, if I have, I'm sorry, but I did a little quick checking to see how many of our our current superintendents were from inside of the district and how many were from outside of the district. And that number was right down the middle. It was about 50-50. And so it was quite interesting to find that out. So anyhow, just for your information, and you know, and there may be some of those people here today, and I can tell you, you know, you'll have great candidates. They are great candidates that you will have that are some of your inside people here. And so, you know, we want to encourage them to apply. Okay, the number of potential candidates. You know, I think that this is where we have to have a little bit of a grip on reality, and that is that being a superintendent today is really not that glamorous. You know, it is a tough job. You know, it's 24/7 in a fishbowl. Everywhere you go, you are the superintendent. You cannot shed that title. And so people are, you know, constantly wanting your ear, or, you know, for some reason or another, or there's an issue that comes up, and you always have your phone with you, and you should forward that to Derek, superintendent, instead of answering that. But many of those you can't forward to him, you've got to answer yourself. And so being that superintendent is such a challenging job that there's not a lot of people who want to do that. But there are some who do, because that's been their lifetime dream, to be the superintendent in Provo School District. And so the number of candidates is a smaller pool, and you know, and I don't know what that number would look like right now. I can tell you what's been, you know, we've had in other districts, but I can tell you it's a smaller pool. But the quality of candidates recently, holy cow, they've just been amazing. The people who have applied. You know, I look at it, I go, wow, where's those people been? You know, I didn't know them right. And many of them are that way. Many of them are go, wow, they've been, you know, hidden in a school district somewhere, and the superintendent, you know, didn't want anybody to know about them because they were great. So, you know, what we need to do now is to be able to dig those people out. We're wanting to get them. And if you will, the thing that we're doing is we are looking for a 5-star athlete here. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to recruit, you know, this rock star or this 5-star athlete. And those candidates, and they are there. I can tell you, they are there. And we will have some of those who will apply. And so we've just got to do a lot to be able to recruit them, get them here. And it is, you know, you know, it's maybe not the best analogy, but, you know, I think when you're looking for a 5-star athlete, what do they do? How do they recruit them? How do they get them in? You know, and be able to get them to apply for it, you know, coming to Provo School District. And so it takes a lot of work. And I can tell you, there's a number of candidates out there right now that, you know, may apply. And some of those, you know, maybe have not been as successful in another school district, and they apply. Or they're there now and they're not successful, and they may apply. So we'll have some of those who will apply. But we are looking for, again, this rock star to come here. We want somebody that has had an incredible success. And so we've got to do everything that we can to get them to come and get them to apply. So that's a lot about, and that's still under that recruitment process there. And so now let me take you just and switch gears just a little bit, but down to item E there is requests for information on candidates from the board or staff. And that's one that we need to get some clarity on of how you'd like to handle that, Rebecca, where you're kind of the one in charge here. You know, we have started the search in Washington School District. That brochure went out on Friday, and that officially opened. Actually, it was Saturday. Was the official day of the opening of that announcement. And today, at our meeting, I had a board member from Washington School District ask me how many applicants we had. and so the answer is we don't have any, and it takes a long time for people to get that information and then for them to decide if they're going to apply. And so the thing that will happen, Rebecca, is that, you know, somebody's going to ask me the same question. You know, how many applicants do we have now? And I have found the very best thing is for us to not give that information out until it closes. And the reason why, unless you guys tell me different, but the reason why is that if I say, hey, you know, we have got X number of candidates, then, you know, somebody may go, well, gee, if they've got that many, then there's no need for me to apply. You know, or if we say there's X number and it's that same number X, then people may look at it and they go, well, how come nobody's applying? That doesn't seem like many people. You know, and so people read it differently of what that means. And so I have found that the very best thing we can do is that we can just, you know, it's open, and then when it closes, then we'll say how many applicants that we have. But, you know, if that changes for some reason you want to know, you know, I'll tell you for sure. But I have found that's kind of a good place to be, because it'll be, you know, somebody will go to Superintendent Rattel and they'll say, well, how many applicants has the board got? Well, let me know. I don't know. Let me call Richard, you know, and so then they call. And I hate to be in a situation to say, no, I can't tell you. You know, I think that needs to be a decision that you guys make of how you want that handled. And we don't need to decide that today, but that will be something that I'll come back to you and say, hey, we need to make sure we know exactly how that process is going to be. Because we don't want to have, you know, Melanie have some information, you know, that McKay doesn't have. I want to make sure that all of you are informed all of the time of what's going on, and we're all in agreement on that. Okay, so the breadth of the search, that would be, you know, how far and wide do you want us to do this recruitment? You know, is it something you want as a statewide search? Is it a Western States search, or do you want it to be a nationwide type search? And so that will be something, and Melanie, I'll just leave that one with you, and then you can maybe give me some direction back on that. And that's, again, that's not something I need to know today, but that's something that we will need to decide.
Well, if we have time, we can chat about it for sure. Yeah.
Because some of today was so that we can start discussing some of these and
Yeah.
get things in place.
Yeah, so some of those things will be helpful. You know, the sooner the better, but I don't want to put any pressure on, you know, anybody here. I'm going to get down to two things that we need to do today, though, that are important and that we need to move on. But some of these other things we can work through, and you guys can give some input on. But be thinking about that. And then the timeline. We need to come back and talk about the timeline. I'm going to go down through the rest of the list, and then we'll come back and talk about the timeline. We'll need to have a discussion about the salary and what not necessarily what that would be, but what we want to say in the brochure. And so let me give you just a little input on that one if I can. We have found that we're a lot better off if we don't put a number there in the announcement. If you put a number in there, then you are locked in to that number. And I like to give you as a board all the flexibility that we can. And coming down, you're going to want to negotiate with this candidate as far as what that salary is. And so I want to give you that flexibility to be able to do that. And so,
What they usually say on applications, like something to do with
Range?
No, like
Commensurate with experience.
yes, that's the phrase.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, with experience and, a salary, is comparable to other districts of similar size.
That's when you know that they're cheap.
Yeah.
Who's not cheap?
No, I know. They know we're gonna be cheap, but
And and you're in an interesting situation here when it comes to salary, and that's why I put it out, and then you guys can, we can work on that one. But, you guys are sitting in between, a very giant school district to the north and a large district to the south here, so you're sandwiched right in between those two there, and being able to compete, salary-wise, I'm not sure, that you're going to pay the Alpine salary, but certainly, you would be able to pay the salary of comparable size school districts. And, what that'd look like, and maybe that'd be, modified from that a little bit, given your situation here. So those are just another thing that Rebecca, we need to put down and be thinking about, okay, what do we want to say in the announcement brochure, and that would be my suggestion. I wouldn't put a number, I would put that kind of language in there to give you the flexibility there. So anyhow, that would be just a thought on the salary. The application form itself, and this was talking about the application where they would fill out just like a job application. So that kind of information. That would be one of the things, Derek, that maybe, you and Keith would work on, and maybe that would be you, that you would work on, that we'd want to get that application form that you have as a school district. So it doesn't look any different, not a whole lot different.
Standard form.
Yeah, just kind of your standard form there. There may be, you may need to tweak it a little bit because of whatever's in there now. But we would need that, and then we would put that with the announcement brochure. They would, link together, or the, two separate things, whatever we need there. And so let's talk about this stakeholder committee. That's one of the big things that we're going to talk about. So if you want to circle that one, and we're going to come back to that in number 6. So down to number 10 is due diligence and site visit, background checks. This is something that is a little more than what some of the other search firms do. The site visits is something unique that we do, and I highly recommend that one to you.
Are you talking about when board members go and visit them at their current job?
Yep, exactly.
Because I spoke to a former board member who said they did that when Keith was hired, and she said it was wonderful. It gave them a better idea of how, because you were already a superintendent, right?
I was a deputy.
Yeah, so she said she got a better overview of what kind of superintendent you would have been here in Provo. So she said that should be a must, that we do that.
Great, thank you, Terry, because I found that to be really helpful, and I could point out a couple of school districts where if the board had not done that site visit, there would have been a different person in as superintendent. And I can just tell you, it's Jordan School District when they hired Patsy Johnson. out of Clark County School District. And, and some people think that, with USBA involved, we only recruit people within Utah, and that's not the case. And so, case in point is Patsy Johnson, who was in Clark County School District, and she was hired in Jordan School District. And she was hired, and she was an outstanding superintendent. And she was hired primarily because of a site visit. And if it hadn't have been that, there would have been a different person as superintendent in that school district. So that's how important I feel that site visits are. So that will be something, and of course we don't need to decide about that today either, but that would be one of the things that I would say, we encourage and we have found to lead to the success that we have had with finding a good fit with a superintendent.
Do you usually do those when you've narrowed it down to like 3 or
Top
5 or
three?
something?
Yeah. So great point, Jennifer. And so the thing that we found that does is, we'll get down to about 3 candidates in the end that are just super qualified. And then that is the thing that kind of creates that separation between the candidates, is doing that site visit that we found has been helpful in being able to go, okay, yeah, that has solidified that person, just like what you had said there. So yeah, so not all of them. It would just be maybe like those, whatever we feel like it needs to be.
The finalists.
Yeah, and whoever and whatever that number might be will look a little different, but at least we're those top finalists.
We should be recruiting very heavily in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the beach.
Oh,
There you go.
I like that idea.
I'll take that trip.
Taxpayers,
Yeah, well.
I'm kidding.
And of course, I have to go on those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So come dance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got that straight now. That's good. Okay. And then we'll send these other guys to Las Vegas, Reno,
That's right.
someplace like
Reno,
that.
I like that one.
Super exciting.
Okay. And then down to the contract and appointment, that will, kind of follow us. So you can see this is kind of taking you through right from the beginning, almost, right to the end here. And then we'll work through, the contract and the appointment, and we can, help you with all of that and do whatever part of that you would like us to as well.
Richard, one of the things that I can add, when I was hired, I was talking with a board member who was an attorney at the time who was put in charge of drafting the contract. Now, I'm sure that he used a boilerplate that you had, or maybe was based on the previous one, but it was a board member who took the lead on that. So I'm sure the board will be looking to you for guidance as to who is the kind of person who should be part of negotiating that on behalf of the board and the district.
Yeah, okay, very good. And there's just, one little critical step in that process that we need to make sure that we do. And I'll make sure that happens for you. But that is very helpful, Superintendent. Thank you for pointing that out. And typically that's what we have done, is had, somebody, like Melanie then, would handle that contract. And it probably would be to take, your current contract in place and then go, okay, is there some things, that we need to change? And you could, work with HR or work with Derek, if there were some things, they may give you some input of what, ought to be changed. And we do have a sample contract, that you could work from, that we've had, legal counsel draft for us that could be used. So anyhow, we'll work through that part, and and then the appointment. And the critical thing is, and I'll mention it now so everybody knows what that point is we need to make sure that contract is signed before that person is appointed. There's, in another location, in another place, the board didn't do that. And so then the person got appointed without having a signed contract. And then it became really tough negotiations then to get that contract signed because they were already appointed. So that's just the one step we have to make sure that happens. And we guide you through all of that to make sure that's handled correctly there. Down to number 12, with your school district and being, situated right here in the heart of Utah County. You know, it may draw a little bit of media attention to the process. Typically, we don't get a whole lot of attention from the media. You know, it's not been, you know, that big of a news generator for people, and so we don't get a whole lot of attention from it. But just so you know that here that we may get a little bit of that, and so we will also want to cover that point. You know, who is it that we're going to address those you know, inquiries from or requests from? You know, who do we have that responds to that? And that can be, you know, me. I'm more than happy to, and you can send them to me. Or if you want Melanie to respond to that, or you know, somebody else. You know, maybe Nate wants to do that, and so we can send them to him.
Well, all the hate mail goes to him anyway.
Is that okay? Well, then let's send all the rest of it to him then. Okay, he's the man, man.
Just lie about her.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate you stepping up and doing that for us.
I'll take all the trash.
Okay. And then I want to talk now about, you know, what is the role of the superintendent in this search process? You know, what do we have the superintendent do, and kind of a little bit of discussion about that. So let me just tell you what typically that has been that role of the superintendent. And first of all, the superintendent is critical in this whole search process. Because we've already mentioned that he's going to get some calls. Already got one. He's going to get some calls, and so that will come. And it's also important because the superintendent can be this great spokesman for us among other superintendents, because they're going to be asking him. You know, they're going to say, "Hey, so you know, whatever." And so you know, we need to make sure that the superintendent you know, is informed of whatever degree that is. But I can tell you, in those searches where that it has worked just great, and let me just use the case of Granite School District. Martin Bates, who now is the interim superintendent in Salt Lake City School District, when he retired there in Granite, then I can tell you, he just stepped so far back out of the process, totally out of the process. Probably a little more than I would have liked, actually. But he just, you know, said, "Hey, you know, this is the board's hire. You know, I'm just going to step out," and you know, and he did. And I just worked with the board president and a staff member there in Granite through the whole process. Never even saw Martin. Martin never even came to any meetings or anything. And so, you know, that's probably a little bit extreme, but Martin wanted to do that for the very reason that he didn't want, you know, people coming to him trying to find information out about what's going on with the search. And so, you know, he just felt like that it was better that he didn't, and, you know, and didn't influence it for good or bad for, you know, candidates or anything that way. Typically, in the other school districts, the role of the superintendent has been, you know, "Hey, yep, you know, I stay out of the process. This is the board," you know, and let them go about the process, and then has been there, you know, to help, because there will be things that we're going to need, and you know, and so for him to direct the staff, "Okay, yeah, you need to send this to Richard." And so a great example of that is what's happening right now in Washington School District. Larry Bergeson, the current superintendent, you know, has just said, you know, he's been to this meeting here, and you know, we've pretty much got everything decided, and really only had 2 or 3 meetings, well, 2 meetings as the board is all we've had there, and so he's just, you know, stepped out of it after that, and but is there, you know, and so Rebecca, most of that would be you calling, you know, Keith and saying, "Hey, you know, it's what we need, you know, can they send it to Richard?" Or, you know, I'll call Keith, and you know, you wouldn't need to be even involved with that, and you know, he can direct the staff to provide what information we need. So what does that information look like? Well, it would be like, for the announcement brochure, would be like some pictures, we need to get some pictures of the district that you'd like to have in that announcement, and some data. And of course, Derek will be the one, who really would have that kind of financial data or whatever else we want included in that. And then to get that, put on the district website. And so that may be, again, Superintendent Rattel directing, your IT people to get this on, the website and so forth, or lining up anything else maybe that we would do. So that's the ideal fit right there, is, for the superintendent to be that person that we can go to get, information and data from the staff and direct them, because we certainly don't want to step out of our role, your role, my role here, in directing staff. That's not, role, as you guys all know that, of directing staff. We don't want to be in that position there. We need to respect him. He's the superintendent, and he is over your staff and that, so we need to follow that process there.
And I will play whatever role the board wants me to play, but I don't expect, as Richard's already outlined, I don't expect I'm going to have much involvement in this process. But I'm here to support the board as you go through it. If at some point you wanted answers to opinions or reference checks or whatever, I can do that, but that'll only be if you ask.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. That's exactly, that makes this whole process work just perfectly that way. And we will have some things, there'll be plenty of things that we'll be asking. And taking that kind of a view there, superintendent, then the board, will go about and can do the work that they do, and everybody's doing the part to contribute to this process, because as you can see, there's enough to go around for everybody. So, okay, so let's go back if we can. We've got 15 minutes, and I guess we could take a little more time if we needed to, unless somebody needed to leave there. But I think the thing we need to do is go to number 9, Rebecca, if we can. So this is a little bit more than the screening of candidates, stakeholder committee. This is actually, getting input from stakeholders to start with. So let's open this up, and maybe you can tell me from the paper you've got there.
Do you have a copy?
I've got one here with me, so thank you. So tell me what do you see, and what direction do we want to go there of getting input from the stakeholders and staff and so forth that way? What is your thoughts and ideas about that?
Well, let me ask you first, if you wouldn't mind giving me a quick clarification. Should we have all this, we should have all this input prior to putting together the brochure, correct? So that it helps shape what we have in the brochure, right? That's the correct order, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be our next step, is getting all the input, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It is. That would be the thing, would be to get that. And in fact,
okay.
and we want to take whatever that, looks like, or we get from, and
right.
it's going to go right directly into that announcement.
Okay. So I was going to ask. So when I spoke to McKay, he was asking if we could do it simultaneously.
Yes. Yes, I see these two things happening at the same time here right now, of working on the announcement as well as getting the stakeholder input, and then those things will come together at about the same time, even though the announcement brochure is not near as big a job, but it still takes some time to get it together, right. And we'll just go at that same speed. But
absolutely.
The thing that's going to direct it is getting okay. that input and how much and what you okay. want that to look like.
So what I've got here on this document is it was everything that was proposed to us from anyone who came and proposed anything to us. So it's pretty comprehensive. I don't necessarily feel like we need all of this, because there's a lot of things in here that do the same job. Some of the consultants suggested just doing a community survey, just an online survey. Some of the suggestions were having actual stakeholder committees get together and decide and define what they feel like they're looking for. I think personally, I feel like maybe our best bet is an online survey where we can reach as many people in the community as possible. That's what I feel like. Does anybody else feel like we need to do in-person committees, or does the survey feel
not maybe a committee? We could do like a town hall. Do we need to do more than one?
do we want to do something at maybe every elementary? I know that that's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work.
But I'm just trying to.
Just
do maybe-
one main one will be
Memories
fine.
of the bond.
If we do more than one, maybe one at one of the secondary schools on
One at
each
each.
side of town.
And you're talking in addition to the survey?
I think we need a survey that can hit everybody, because not everyone's gonna be able to come.
Mhm.
But I also would like to have at least a couple of in-person things, not necessarily a committee, but like
A
Terry
town
was
hall
saying,
type meeting.
a town hall. I think this is a great opportunity to hear from teachers and administrators and parents and community members.
Okay.
What's going well in our district, what they see that we should be working on, which will help us not only in this process, but I know a lot of us have that desire to work on our board goals, and like,
Yeah.
let's do it all at the same time to gather some input that can help us in both
So
of those.
this is more like a listening tour, letting people, almost
So
like
is it
public
gonna be
input.
specific to superintendent search, or is it gonna be town hall listening for the whole entire district?
I think we can work on shaping the questions, but I think you can write questions that work to both of those without having to have 20 questions.
Right.
Right.
I do want the focus, I would like the focus to be superintendent search, but we can maybe glean information
Yeah.
from that, not necessarily make it.
But I think knowing what do you feel are areas for improvement in our
Right.
district, that helps us know what kind of candidate would
Right.
be good, right? Like, I think they're related.
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. I agree they're related. I just don't, if we're gonna have a town hall for the superintendent search, I want it to be focused on the superintendent search.
Right.
And then we just take secondarily from it, we take that information
Yeah.
that'll help us with our goals.
I think that's it.
And will we do a survey that informs the town hall, or a town hall that informs the survey?
Good question.
And would we separate the survey, one for staff and like employees, and then one survey for parents
Well,
and
that's what
community
we-
members?
I think we need to have separate ones for different roles, yeah.
I would, going along with the surveys, I would suggest that we would hire somebody like Y2K or somebody to do this for us, to do a good survey.
So it sounds like what we're looking at is a community-wide survey that is divided up based on, that gets sent to certain surveys get sent to specific groups, right? And then also, what I'm hearing, 2 town hall type meetings, 1 at each high school, to gather community input in person.
So here's my concern, like I want as much input as we can get, I think, from the community in a way that's gonna be productive. I'm a little bit worried that in these meetings, they're gonna say things, and then if we don't do exactly what they told us that they wanted, then we're in trouble. Then they're gonna hang us, cause you asked us what we wanted and you didn't do it, so why do you even ask us? So that's
Right.
more my concern comes, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but that's a concern that I have.
So I deal with that all the time, and I make it clear up front that this is an input decision. We're seeking your input, but this is the board's decision. This decision belongs to the board. And as long as you're explicit about it up front, most people will understand it. My opinion.
And who's gonna run those meetings?
Well, right now I have it under a consultant task on this.
Okay.
So it would be something we would attend maybe and hang out in the back and let someone else kind of do the.
I think it could be the board too, or.
I mean, it is our decision, so it's not a
Yeah.
bad thing for us to go out and conduct the
I mean,
meeting.
it could be you guys.
We need to do one at least before Nate's gone.
Well, we do need to get on this pretty quick.
Well, I think we need it to, we
And
need it.
instead
for
of
the holidays.
doing one on each side of town, maybe we do an English one and a Spanish one.
That's not a bad idea too.
And those are our 2 town halls, and that's it.
Or maybe one on each side of town and one Spanish one, I don't know.
Would it be, do you think we'd get a lot of participation from the Spanish-speaking community if we had translators or like headsets at each town hall
No,
meeting?
it's in Spanish.
You want it in Spanish?
Yeah. We have plenty of employees that speak Spanish.
We could have a translator for English, and then people will know how it feels.
Yeah.
I don't know how it feels, so maybe I need to have the headset.
Could I just weigh in on that?
Please do.
There's a great discussion, and I
Yeah.
don't want to, change it, but let me just reinforce a couple of things that I've heard you say here. First of all, what Melanie had suggested about using like Y2K or some other polling group, I think that will help validate the work that we're doing here.
Right.
Because then we've got somebody that's independent, and I think you as a board, we could come up with, what the questions are that we want asked. And then I think we meet with them and say, this is what we're wanting to accomplish. How can we best do that in the school district here?
Right.
And, and we can, I think, we could drill down to the point of saying, hey, let's, have it at, X number of sites or X number of schools. But I would totally agree with what you have all said, and particularly with Jennifer about having, this online survey. I think is really important, because there'll be people who can't get to these town hall meetings or focus groups, whatever we're going to call them, but it can be online, and we can communicate that out for, far and wide and for a long time, and say, hey, you can still give us your input. We want your input, and then have those online, and then it's the same ones that you would get if you were at a town hall or at one of these focus groups.
So would you suggest having one first or second, or having, like Nate asked, one inform the other?
I think you guys could talk about, the value and merits of whatever would work for your community here. But I think that, we can talk some more about what that would look like. But I think that Melanie's idea of using somebody outside, I think will be really helpful, because then people will see that as being, this is independent, and maybe even more confidential, and I think just give people some assurance, that we are asking, we are serious, because we're having them do that for their input, and then we would get that. But to keep it, and I'll just say what you did, Gene, and that is, we want to make sure that this is, that this is important, and and it is genuine.
Right.
So we're going to take that information, we are going to use it, it is going to go into that brochure, and then people will feel like, okay, that was, they were validated, and not get too far afield either, and let that meeting get carried away. And that's why having a focus group is helpful. But then what, Nate said, yeah, you guys could be in the back there, or maybe you said that, Rebecca, you guys could be in the back, you can come, sure, come and hear what is going on.
I think we should do a group meeting so that we have better questions for the survey, if we're going to have a professional company do the survey. And then they can come to the meetings and help,
Okay.
and that'll help them design their questions.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so town halls first. Do we want to do one in English, one in Spanish?
Yeah.
One at each side, and then one in Spanish? Morning, evening, Saturdays? And do we have any idea when is the best time to be able to catch people when they're the most available?
I'd say not in the morning.
Okay, I agree.
I'd say evening.
Yeah, I think Thursdays are better.
Or if
You
we're
know,
More
gonna
than
have-
like a weekend, more
if
than
we're
like a
gonna have
Saturday?
2 English ones, maybe we make them on different nights of the week. So if for somebody, a Thursday night's always bad, they can go
Right.
to one, even if it's on the other side of town, and then it's on a different night, it might be open for them.
Okay.
So 2 English and a Spanish, is that what we're looking at?
Is that kind of
I
what we
think
think?
that would be good, just so that, for distance, I mean,
Yeah.
for somebody, where I live, if it was over at Provo High, it's less likely for somebody to come because it's 30 minutes away.
Yeah. So maybe
So-
we do, like a Provo High and a Timpview, and then maybe at
Do
Dixon?
you really want to do it at Timpview? With
We
all
can
the
do it at
Actually,
Centennial.
Centennial makes
We
sense.
can do it Centennial,
Centennial makes
that's
sense.
similar.
Centennial would
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
be
you're
better.
right.
Yeah.
So like a Provo High
That's
and
a
a
great
Centennial
point.
and a Dixon? We try, does that sound agreeable to everyone? Okay, so town halls first, Provo High, Centennial, Dixon, and then after that,
When do
Y2K
we want
or
to have
whatever we
the
want.
survey results back though? Because I see value in having it inform the survey, but I can also see, especially having a professional company help us write
It's
survey.
yeah, time.
I mean, we might wanna do it all concurrently and just use all the information unless we wanna take 3 months to
Well,
put
we
a
can also
brochure together.
invite whoever does the survey to be at these town hall meetings to listen to what people are saying so that they can help say, okay, this is what we heard as well.
Yeah.
But to Jennifer's point, what she's saying is, it's gonna take time to schedule these and
Right.
get
To
advertising,
advertise
right?
them, to
And
get
then
it
once
done.
we get all that done, then put the survey together and then send it out and then have the survey open for 2 full weeks. Like, we're talking that we're 2 months out on this, as is, right? Is the kind of the
I
way
think we
we're.
could pull the meeting together pretty
Pretty
quick,
quick?
right? Don't you think?
Yeah, November before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
November?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I was
And then
thinking.
you have the survey early December.
We want it to be like,
When do we wanna have the application out?
Yeah, well, we
You
want
wanna
it to
have
be
that
able to fly the application
first
in
of January,
December.
right?
Yeah, when do you-
Application.
Before the Christmas holidays, right, so they can look it over and
Mull it
make
over
life
with their hot
choices with their
chocolate.
family
I think
members.
While they're in a good mood.
I think we could get everything done before the, like, have this, when would we, Richard, when do you want, should we have that ready?
What?
The brochure?
Brochure, I'm just looking at the Washington brochure right there.
Okay, let me, yeah, I would say if we could have that done, probably by, and that's where we can be going down the same track at the same time, so it's about ready by the time we get the survey done, so we can just put that in. I think if we had that ready to go by 10th of January, that would be on, in my mind, keep us on this ideal schedule that we'd have, and we can, and that's that number 6 timeline. We can come back and talk about that, but that would fit right in with that timeline for sure. So if we had, 10th of January or thereabouts, that
Our
would.
original timeline had us offering the job to the new superintendent about March 1. So if we have our brochure ready January 1, is that enough time?
Yeah, and I would encourage you to push that back just a little bit on that timeline. And one of the reasons why is that if we get that out there too quick, and I know this may be contrary to what some of you think, but if you get it out there too quick, people aren't even thinking about applying for a superintendent position. People in, kind of in the Intermountain West here are so focused on this July 1st start date, and then they back up from that, and they're not thinking about that until really about the middle of February or to the 1st of March of even applying, because they go, hey, I'm in my job here now, I haven't even thought about next year. And so that's why I would encourage you to push that back. The ideal, in my mind, would be, that we would close about the 15th of March. And, in some of those brochures, you'll see that the one in granite, again, I mentioned that, wasn't that it was perfect, but that one there, I think we had March 5th was a closing date, and I would push that even to March 15th as a closing date.
What's Washington's current timeline? They're out extremely early.
Yeah,
Well-
'cause they're trying to have
Just
a.
second, Cory,
for time.
excuse me, I gotta go deal with an issue, so.
Okay.
Richard, thank you. I assume you'll be done by the time.
Okay, thanks, Superintendent.
They're announcing.
Yeah, they have a way different timeline there, and I wouldn't even try and do anything with their timeline. They're a little bit out of sync, and there's a reason why that they are. And so, to me, the ideal would be, would be to look like it at March 15th or so to close the applications, and then work through that and get somebody appointed. I think that's more of the ideal that I have found, is to have something, mid-March, even March 20th.
Okay.
And so that's why, we can talk about that, but that's why I would say January, 5th or 10th, to have that data all in and collected and everything. I think you will be in a good place there.
So Richard, one thought we had was we wanted to get out there in front of, if there are any other positions that open up in our state. Do you feel that what you just suggested would still help us be first and
You will be.
foremost, and we'd close before other
Yeah.
ones would, or should we bump it up a little bit?
No, you will be, I think you will be ahead of that. The only other one that I know of that's going to be open in Utah that I know of right now, and that's Morgan School District. And the people that would apply in Morgan are not the people who would necessarily apply here.
So there's a total of 3 superintendent spots available this year that you're aware of. So
Yep.
Washington, Morgan, and Provo.
Yep. And, and I can tell you, my guess is in Washington School District, they're probably going to hire somebody inside, because that's what that district has typically done.
Okay.
But, having ours, information out there, like, we're talking now, and that people know that, there could be some people that are in Washington that may be interested in coming here. That's a big school district and a lot of great people there. So anyhow, that's just something to kind of keep in mind. We don't need to get that deadline, set for sure.
Right.
But I would like you to consider that of looking at a March time frame of that closing.
Okay. So let's kind of go over this second.
Did you have your hand up?
Me?
Yes?
Well, I was thinking about something, but we can go through the timeline.
Well, I was just
I'll
going to
wait
go through
till-
this second
wait.
section really quick and decide. So I've crossed out the first bullet point because it sounds like we don't want to do committees, right? But then the second bullet point will say something more like hold an evening, town hall, 2 in English, 1 in Spanish, to collect community input, and then we'll survey the community online, both in Spanish and English, through an independent company. Someone will give us a report on that from those meetings and from the survey, and then we'll do the brochure, provide the application, and there we go. And then let's see, on this side over here on our side, review and make final decision on candidate profile, provide necessary info for the brochure to you, review and approve brochure and application, and review upcoming procedures for phase 3. So all of this is going to be done by about January 1 is what we're looking at.
Yes.
So does that sound okay to everyone here? Is everyone okay with that?
I have one issue.
Go for it.
I'm going to be, and Richard and I talked about this, but I'm going to be off the board, so maybe whoever, we'll know who's going to be in my place in like 2 weeks, maybe involve them as much as possible, much as legally possible, so that someone who actually...
Oh, I completely agree with that. Like November 8th, whoever is on the board, I think should be included in these discussions.
Okay.
In
And
all-
I'll put that
in
in
all the
as a bullet
commissions.
point on this second involve newly elected board members.
I would say on the January 1st deadline, I think we just need to move it to December 15th or whatever that is before Christmas break, because we're not going to work on it over Christmas break. So in our head, it needs to be
December.
December.
Right, done before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The survey company like
Y2K.
Are we going to need to do like an RFP?
Bingo, I can start one or is that something you directly contract through, or because I'm happy to get that going, but I just, because there hasn't been any discussion on finalizing and formalizing that, I wanted to.
Yeah, that would be great if you did. I think that would be really helpful, because there would be maybe some things you would know that would be helpful to that process there. Rebecca, you mentioned one other thing, I think at some point in time, and I think that would be really good as we're talking about these groups here, and that would be is making sure that the staff have an opportunity to give that input. And so whether that's, a separate meeting with them or 2 separate meetings or whatever it is, we want to make sure, that they feel,
Heard as well.
Yeah, because we
Absolutely.
do want their input for sure.
So are you suggesting possibly do some kind of town hall type meeting with staff only, where anyone in the district who works here is welcome to come and give their input as well, in person?
I would.
Okay.
Maybe like a Friday after everybody gets out early out day.
No one wants to stay.
Well, but
I'm kind of on your side. I don't know if on a Friday I'd be.
Well, is it something that's okay to do during their PLC time on a Friday?
Problem is,
without-
does everybody have the same?
They're all supposed to
So
stay
they're all
for
supposed to-
until a certain
yeah.
time on Friday and use that time for.
But yeah, their prep periods are not aligned all at the same time, so that they're not like all at the end of the day. Some of them are the beginning of the days, there's some
But everybody, with early outs on Friday, everyone is supposed to be having their.
That they have time.
So if we
Correct.
did it within that time frame, when they're on the clock still, they might be more motivated to come.
I could see that one, yeah, being an option, because it's the early out day on a Friday, which they're technically still working, so.
Yeah, they work till 4.
Okay, I'm totally fine with that. I wanna make sure everybody feels like they have a chance to say what they wanna say, so.
Yeah, and, you know, maybe it would be, you know, 2 or 3 of them even at the same time that would be going on. And you guys would know best how to handle that or where that would be at. But I think they'll go a long ways. Because again, you know, we want their input.
Yeah, absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
yeah. and
We just wanna make sure that we check the master schedule to make sure there's not any big things kind of scheduled on one of those days.
Yeah,
that
we
they
need
do
to
it.
coordinate with you
Okay.
guys.
Okay, so if everyone is okay with what we have in here, besides that first bullet point on the second section, which I've crossed out, we'll include the 2 English town halls, the Spanish town hall, the staff town hall, and then also add that will involve newly elected board members in the process. Everybody feel okay with what's going on in that second section there?
Mhm.
Okay. And with a deadline of December 15th. Okay, okay, great. Do you want to keep going? Do you guys want to keep going through the different sections, or do we want to
Yeah,
save that
that's
for?
good.
I think that's good,
Okay.
because things might change as we learn different things
Okay.
as we go.
And then just my one question is for Richard to be able to put the brochure together, like how's the communication happening so we know what information to get you? And
So I think-
The statistics on the back of this, and do you want me, like, because there's a lot of stuff right there, I'm happy to just start
Or do we
compiling
need to
all of
decide
that.
the story we
But
wanna tell, or?
Bingo, that's,
Yeah.
that's, I think, what we wanna do is I know we've got a standard boilerplate, but if there's anything that the story you wanna tell, then that will need to be custom designed.
Some of that will come from the community input, but I think some of that we can decide now.
Yeah, and I think we can be working on that. You know, and if you look at that, that's the Washington one there. You know, there's a lot there. If you look at the one we did for Alpine, you know, there's even more there, and it can get a little cluttered. And so I think, you
Less
know,
is always more.
yeah, I think that we ought to let Derek just take a look at that and go, okay, let's put what, you know, we think are the really important numbers about Provo.
Derek, what if we'd ask you to put something together with the stats, the most important stats or the greatest looking ones? I don't know what most marketable stats. And maybe if you could send something to us that we could look at and make some suggestions or ask if we could add something, or is that okay with everyone?
Yep. So what I will send out will mainly be kind of like, what I'll do is kind of sections with bulleted lists. It's not gonna be all graphical.
No.
Yep, you're hired. You want
Yeah,
graphics.
we'll take care of
When
the
we decide what we
graphics.
want, yeah, someone can make
Yeah,
it
we'll
look pretty.
do the graphics, so.
Kayla's department. Or
Yeah, we'll do that, yep.
And then for the rest of for the town hall meetings, and you'll also take care of the RFPs for the survey and start asking about that. And then for the town hall meetings, is everyone okay if I work with Bonnie and try and get some stuff on the calendar? Okay. And we're aiming for about mid-ish November, right? Mid-November.
There's a board member question, maybe you know it, for these town hall meetings, can all of us be at these meetings?
Correct. Well,
Okay.
you all can be there. We will still need to notice it.
Okay.
But just listed as there's no
no
business
business
being
being taken
discussed.
place.
Do we want to be there? Like, you mentioned something about having it be more anonymous so that people aren't thinking that we're...
So it may be best if we're not there.
You know, I think if you were there, I would not have a quorum there. So then they need to post the notice and do all of that. I would say, hey, you know, maybe divide that up. Let Rebecca do that, or Melanie, you divide that up and say, hey, you know, let's have, you know, 3 at this one, you know, 3 at this one.
Okay.
And I think that would be good, because it's like you said, we certainly don't want to overpower it by having people come there and going, you know, well, you know, or
Right.
sensitive to what they might say because you guys are there.
Right.
So I'd just be a little bit careful with that.
But at the same time, I want to hear what they have to say too, though.
Yep.
Right? So, what's
They're going to be broadcast? No,
Are we
I
YouTubing it?
don't, no, it's not broadcast though.
Okay.
No.
I just heard myself.
Yeah, let's, we
If they
want
wanna
to keep
stay
it.
anonymous.
Yeah, anonymous and simple, and so I would, Rebecca, I think just leave that to you and, or Melanie, and you guys say, hey, let's just have 2 people maybe at each one of these, or 3.
And maybe it feels less intimidating to people if the East Side board members go to the West Side meeting and the West Side, you know, like if we mix it up a little and we're not as, I don't know.
And that's where you would know the best of how maybe that would work.
We also, I don't think, want it to turn into question answer, right?
No.
Like,
No.
I'm
It's
worried
just
if,
input.
if we come in
That's
force,
why-
everybody's gonna wanna ask us questions.
So that's why,
It's like-
whoever, are we having you conduct the town halls? Richard, is that what we're thinking? Is that the right way to go about it? Who conducts the town hall meeting?
You know.
And keeps order, bangs the gavel when
Yeah.
people get out of, go out of the
And
process?
so, the thing that I would suggest is that we would have, you know, these people that are doing this workforce, compiling it, have them do it.
Okay.
And again.
Survey people?
Yep, so that it makes it look like that it is.
It's independent.
Totally independent, yep, exactly, and,
Okay.
you know, because
But
I'm
we're
one
not
of.
paying Richard, so.
Yeah, I'm one of you guys now, you know, and so I think
Okay.
that would help give us some more credibility of what we're doing in the work here, if we have them conduct it.
And what we could also do is, whoever the company is ask them what protocol, what format, how do they
Right.
plan on using in a town hall.
Well, they're the experts on knowing how to channel the meetings the right way so that it doesn't get out of control and to keep it.
Yep.
So,
Oh.
that's the thing with the RFPs, so that they would conduct their town hall. How many meetings are we talking?
Well, we're talking 4 total
Four
because we
now.
have 2 English, 1 Spanish, and now we have a staff.
But are we gonna
Okay,
have
yeah.
multiple staff ones? Or is there just one staff one?
One
We
staff.
need to kind of work that out, I think, for on
You
the
need to be on
staff.
site, right?
To talk to our district
Yeah, that's a
administrators
lot.
and
Maybe
find
we
out
would
what's
have
gonna work
2.
best.
We would overwhelm any one of our sites with
Could
staff.
they do it on Zoom?
I don't think you're gonna get the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get the same kind of participation, I agree.
Yeah, I think we have to.
We maybe need to do a couple staff ones, just because of size. I mean, we have enough staff members across the district that we might need 2 sites, right?
Yeah.
But they could technically be done at the same
Yeah,
time,
they
right?
can be
Same day, same time,
simultaneous.
just two different locations.
Yeah.
Right now, so what is that they will be conducting or holding at least 4, possibly 5 meetings. Is one of them, and then we got the survey that they're gonna be conducting.
That somehow needs to be able to go out to all community members if needed.
Yeah.
We have email addresses of all of the parents and of the students, but we don't have citywide, so we're gonna have to figure
And
it out.
are we having separate surveys, one for staff?
One for staff.
And one for community?
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that works really well that way is that's the first question on there, you know, is to ask people, are you a staff member, you know, community member?
And then maybe it just goes 2 different
Yeah,
directions
and,
depending on what they
most
answer.
people are really, you know, they're honest and they'll just tell you what it is, or if they don't, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
But at least then you get an idea, and most of the time, people will, you know that that'll be helpful, that information, and so they'll identify if they're a staff member, or, you know, a parent, or, you know, whoever
Is
they
there
are.
Any specific number of questions, up to 10, do we want it up to 20?
We want it short
Short.
and sweet,
That's
so
kinda
people
what I
stay
figured,
interested
so-
and
And then we-
actually take the survey.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from them on whether it's quantitative or qualitative, and then what they'll do with the analysis as well,
They'll
but.
probably be able to tell us how many questions
Yeah, they're gonna have to design
Yeah.
that.
would be useful.
Because
I think the fewer the
on
better.
a district-wide survey,
Yeah.
you don't want people giving sentence answers. It's gotta be, choose this option, so they might need more questions than when you're in person and you say, tell me how you feel about this, you don't have to ask them any questions.
All right. And the reason I ask about just a number is, depending on how people design their bids, is they will sometimes
Right.
tranche them, things like that, so. it's-
I would say even 10 is
Too many. I'm on your side, the shorter
10
and
is
sweeter
max.
the
The
better.
shorter the
I'd
better.
say like
Yep.
no more than 10, but we're looking at less than 10.
Yeah, yep.
5 is. Yeah.
5,
And then I think-
the less,
So-
more
so-
likely people will take
Yes.
it.
So we want their expertise on the opinion of, you know, the style, the questions and things like that, but we want it to be less than 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
More like 5. but-
And as a side note, I don't think that anyone from the district should be at those meetings. I think that needs to be, I don't know, we could talk about whether we want to be there or whether we should be there, but I think when they're giving input about what they want to see happen in the district, it needs to be without,
District staff.
like, yeah.
Well, then we'll give them their chance at the staff town hall.
Exactly.
So-
That's
so
where they
a-
can go.
I think that's acceptable to ask of people.
Yep.
Okay. All right, everybody feel good about?
And then
The direction
also
we're going?
they'll be willing to come, whoever we decide will come to break down the information for us. And give us a report. Give us a report.
I was just looking at the calendar, I think we need to have this town hall, like those first 2 weeks of November, before Thanksgiving hits.
Yeah, absolutely, mid-November.
So 1 week, for the English ones, 1 week.
Okay. What if we did both of the English ones on the same week, one on like a Tuesday night and one on like a Thursday night? As long as there's 2 different nights that they can be in the same week, right?
That's true, yeah.
Okay, so I'll get together with Bonnie after this and try and nail down some nights that'll work for these, some times for the town halls.
I hope they have, I wonder if Y2K has Spanish speakers that could do it.
My guess is they should, any reputable surveying company should have that ability.
Okay, I think we're good then. I think we're ready to go. I'll update this and I'll send everyone a new copy of this, and then we will just plan on in the future talking about and refining and going over number 3, number 4, number 5 as we go through the process. Great. Sound good? Okay.
All right, any further questions about the superintendent search? Or for Richard before he? Okay. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank
Great
you.
discussion.
You're the one who had to drive.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, Terry, I guess you're next then, aren't you? Okay.